Hello and welcome back to Pandemic Playground with Dave. So today we have another experiment for you guys, and that is playing around with wheels with hinges. Alright, so when we're talking about wheels and hinges, I'm not specifically talking about putting wheel suspensions on hinges like this one here, where we have the wheels attached, or wheel suspensions attached to the hinges at an angle, which makes for a pretty cool little vehicle, but it doesn't really drive that great, as you see here. Well, maybe if I change the steering off of two of them, that might work out. So let's see if I take those off. And then the front two has the wheels, and it doesn't really give us any way of turning, so that's a bit of an issue. So we can always bring it back to a 0 degrees angle to get that turning. But I was just playing around with it to see how that kind of works. Of course, this build is actually using a script for the wheels, which are attached to hinges. So what I'm using is actually this here, the SWCS whips subgrid wheel control script. So you can control the wheel suspensions and wheels as a subgrid, as you see here in this hinge build. But yeah, but in terms of playing around with hinges as wheels, this is not what I meant per se. I actually meant hinges as the wheels themselves. So my prototype here, of course, I had built it with small batteries and some merge blocks to make it easier to connect everything together. And this is built off of that same concept as my two-wheelers or my motorcycle or unicycle kind of builds, where you have the gyroscope on override and the other one as just regular on. But yeah, I built these hinges as kind of like a circular wheel. Hopefully I get somewhat of a circular shape out of them. Not the best for all of them, but they do shape out a little bit okay. And I just want to see if it kind of works out. And the reason why I saw this is because I've been playing around with hinges to link them over and over again. And at one point it turned into close to a circle. So I was like, hey, let's turn them into wheels. Because of course we want to play around with different types of wheels in Space Engineers. So this build should be fairly easy. It's the same as the previous wheel videos I made or experiments I made, where it's running out of rotors. So what you do is pretty much have the left and right rotors run in the forward direction, and all you're doing is increasing velocity and decreasing velocity. And if you're turning, of course you can use the gyroscopes to turn, as I'm using just the mouse to spin it because of the gyroscopes are there. But to turn it also, you can have one going forward, one going backwards, meaning left and right, to spin it that way. So for an example, you can always do this here, and that's kind of like a bit of a spin or a turn there. But to go forward, we'll just go hit that and go forward. And to be honest, as an experiment, I did not think this will work pretty well. And in terms of the rotations, of course it's not a perfect circle, they are working pretty well. And of course we can go as fast as we can here, which is 60 RPMs, and it's not gonna break, which is awesome. It's not the quickest thing in the world, as you see in the bottom left. It's only about 8.5, close to 9 meters per second, which is not great at all. But you can have hinges as the actual wheels, which was very surprising that it kind of worked out. And it didn't seem to be braking too much, or braking at all, while having the highest speed on it, on the RPMs at least. So we'll move that along, and it's not too bouncy. I mean, it's probably a little bit bouncy because it's like horribly shaped. It's not a perfect circle. Some of them look pretty good, like this one looks decent. This one's a little out of shape, and so forth. Yeah, I mean, I think most of these you can pretty much lock them in place if you want to. If you do like shared inertia, I mean, you can do that, but it kind of misshapens them a bit. So if I were to do something like that, shared inertia, it kind of fits out decently that way too. So what I try to do actually for each hinge, I try to do like the upper limit of them to be about 30, or between 20 and 30, I would say, to get a nice little circular shape. Looks like 30's on these right now, but not all of them are 30. As you saw, some of them are like 14 degrees, some are 20, but that was the closest I can get to a circle without spending like a lot of time really fine-tuning each and every hinge there. So then from there, why not just think about going back to the old school way of making wheels, and I decided to just plop on some hinge parts as the kind of curvature of the wheels for these kind of blocks. And it's built off the same exact system as the one we just spoke about before. And this one works out. I mean, it kind of works. It's not the best thing in the world. It's more rocky because it's more square than anything else. It's only curved at the end, but it actually moves okay. It's not terrible. It's not breaking at 60 RPMs either, so that's a win for me, I think, or a win for this system. And you know, it rotates, it goes. It's very low to the ground, so you're pretty much almost Flintstoning it in a sense. You might as well see some feet on the bottom of the vehicle moving this whole machine. But I guess you can use the hinge parts to kind of work it out too, because as you see here, only the corners, which is the hinge part, that's actually hitting the ground. It's a little bouncy, but in terms of my old experiments, this would have been probably a good one to do. In that sense, because it's rotating fairly well. It's not too bad at all. Alright, so we'll stop that. I made another few other ones, as you see here. There's a whole bunch of them that I've been testing, and the next one I have is going back to the first one we just talked about, and here I attached a thruster, so that way we go a little bit faster. And this one's running off of a script also, and this is the Vector Thrust 2 script. That way I can rotate it forward and backwards for the most part. So we just turn that on, run that, and instead of you having the RPMs run on the rotors, I put them as torqueless rotors, so that way we can speed it up and see how fast we can go until it breaks. So if we were to start that up, we just go forward, now thrusters will go. And again, it's going to be a little bit bouncy, so it's just not the best thing in the world. But right now, it should go more than the 8 meters per second as we did before. But it's going to slowly go and make its course do a lot faster. I don't know how long it's going to take to reach max speed. But right now, it's slowly climbing, and we're about 11 meters per second and kind of teetering. And yeah, it's kind of teetering off. So I think the bounce is kind of making it. It's maybe a little too heavy. So if we were to add more thrusters, I think we can go a lot faster. Alright, so I added 2 more thrusters vertically on top of each other. So hopefully that kind of works out. Maybe just in case, we will have to kind of recompile this and run it that way. Just in case. Alright, so we are going to go forward, and it looks like we're picking up speed quicker. We're already past what we've seen before, and we're going to monitor and see when things will start breaking, as we did in the previous experiments with the wheels. Alright, so looks like about 20 to 30, but we're still rotating in some ways, and we're running off of 2 wheels, now 0 wheels, and now we've become hovercraft, and now we've become, no, still hovercraft. We're gonna become nothing's very soon, but alright, so that's not too bad. I mean, it's similar, very similar to previous experiments where the rotor wheel kind of systems will break around 20 to 30 meters per second. So I guess to kind of keep building those systems, it's always gonna have that kind of similar breaking point. But of course, I went as far as to try a few more, and one of the main ones that were pretty interesting to me, I decided to make one out of hinges, but without actually making it into a circle. So as you see here, this is kind of what inspired me to make the hinges into a wheel in a circle fashion. It's actually have them wrapped around a block and see if that works. And all these are actually torqueless right now. And when we're driving forward, it's gonna kind of wrap around the box a little bit, or the block over there a bit more, and kind of see if it works out. And honestly, I was super surprised at how well this one worked, because if we go forward, we can even go as forward as fast as possible. It does whip around a bit, but as you see here, it's actually working pretty well. It's not the fastest thing in the world, it's not the smoothest thing in the world. It has a bit of a whipping animation in some senses too, but I was surprised that this actually worked out in having it actually move forward. I think if we add a lot more, it'd probably be more chaos. If we put a little less, it might be smoother. if you have just enough to wrap it around. Maybe if I got rid of, I think 4 of them there, it might run a little bit smoother. So you know what, let's just give that a shot. Right, there we go. We removed 4 on each side, and now we're going to speed them up to 60 RPMs. And it's not a bigger whip. It's actually not as smooth as I thought it would be. It's I think the longer was a little bit better. It gets more gripping, because right now what's happening is that the inner portion of it's not actually gripping to the floor, and the fastest we can go is teetering around 3 to 4 meters per second. So actually the longer piece works a little bit better. Would you ever kind of use this for a vehicle? Probably never, but it sure looks pretty interesting in some ways. But longer was better, shorter was not ideal in this case here. But of course, this was a bit of a short experiment. I was just, just curious how hinges can be wheels, so I just decided to just go for it. Alright, so if you are curious on how I built them, basically I built the base with merge blocks. So you have 4 merge blocks on the base of the rover, and I individually made these. So I made the separate 1 merge block rotor and the blocks here, or the hinges, whatever the case may be. And what I did was actually copied the base of the rover, flipped it to the side, and then I copied this wheel, flipped it to the side, dropped it on top of that merge block here, and then I dropped it into that merge block, copied the base with these wheels, turned it to the other side, and then paste on the wheels on top of those merge and let it merge into it. So as you see here, this was the standalone wheel on that. So that's why there was merge blocks and things like that. It just made it easier and quicker way of kind of building it. And of course, there's a bit of like a graveyard of building that here. As you see, there's a big mess here, so I just kept on trying to pile them on top of them, use the pistons just to see if I could get it running. This is a similar build to the last one we have there, except having all the hinges curl in and not torqueless. So it kind of made a mess out of things, and it didn't become a perfect circle. So it's gonna run kind of weird and oddly like that, where the bottom or the back becomes higher than the bottom or the front. So it's a bit of a mess there. So that didn't work out too well. But this was a fun experiment. Hope you guys did enjoy it. If you did enjoy that video, of course, hit that thumbs up, like the video, consider subscribing to the channel, hit that notification bell, and feel free to leave us some comments. And of course, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.